I think that's just all Mountaineer fans can say right now, really. That one just got away from West Virginia as the Mountaineers do fall to Texas, the number 20th ranked Texas Longhorns, 82-81. And wow, West Virginia fans were giving you the horns down all day. Texas flips it back up and gets the victory. This is your WVU postgame show. The Mountaineers now fall to a game below 500. This team was at one point 13-2. They are now 14-15. I'm your host, Mike Asti, and I will be joined by our Ethan Bock, who will be joining me live from the Coliseum. He did cover the game here for us at West Virginia Sports Now, and his game recap is there at WVSN. Also, the post-game video reaction from Huggins and players, including Curry, who helped carry this team off the bench, and the team kind of wasted his solid bench production. Taz Sherman and others as the starters didn't really do enough in this game, as well as Sherman and Huggins, of course, on Pittsburgh Sports Live with their post-game reaction. And Ethan, it looked like maybe a game West Virginia could steal, most notably because of the bench production. West Virginia hasn't been able to get that much bench production most of this season. The offense has certainly mightily struggled this year, rebounding, layups, all of that has been a problem recently. They've lost tons of games. But this game, they were getting so much from the bench, even though they were missing some shots from the starters still, that they were right in there. They had a 6-8 point lead late. Texas was not really having their best day at all. And a loss like this could have dropped Texas out of the top 25, possibly. It could have kept West Virginia alive, even though Huggins proclaims they still are. It's not necessarily a horrendous loss because it is a good team they're facing, even though they were home. And they, for the most part, played well as a team, especially depth-wise and to the bench. But at the end of the game, of course, it didn't go West Virginia's way. That's just kind of been death taxes, and West Virginia can't close games this year, whether they're leading or trying to come back. And they do lose. So I know Huggins was kind of giving you the positive attitude that we're not dead yet. You're going to see the casket gif out there on social media. How bad of a loss was this for West Virginia because of their situation? How bad does this really sting? And what's the feeling around the program right now after another L? And now they're below 500 with only a few left.
Yeah, I think this loss was just as bad as Wednesday night's loss to Iowa State. A game that you can steal away in the Big 12 conference, add to your resume, and now you're looking at having to win the Big 12 conference tournament to get into the NCAA tournament.
Pretty much, yeah. What did Huggins say or anybody say in terms of their feelings? We know that Huggins said we're not dead yet, but what was the feeling or when you were talking to players and just being near other colleagues of yours, of ours in media and even fans? You were there. It was a sold out house. That was kind of surprising to some. Maybe a lot of Texas fans were oddly there as well. But what were even the fans saying? Were their heads held high or were they kind of giving you the, oh, God, we can't win a game? Only one really in the calendar year.
Yeah, the crowd was great today. As soon as Malik Curry missed the mid-range shot, to win the game, everybody got up, groaned, walked out, and I know Malik and Taz after the game they hate those two out of everybody on that team hate losing. You could tell Malik really wanted to win today because he was giving it all, offensive and defensively, trying to help the void of Keedy Johnson being hurt. But yeah, Huggins is really shockingly, but not shockingly, the only positive person today. Again, by saying we're not dead yet, I don't know.
It's hard to read him, but I guess he can't quit on a year. I don't know.
Yeah. But they're under 500, so
yeah.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, 82-81. West Virginia does lose to Texas again. Now they're under 500, and I think you said it. It's really hard to deny. At one point, and even after the last loss, I know Huggins came out there and said, okay, if we can get 4 wins, if we win 4 out of our last 5, it's possible. It's an easier stretch in conference play than what we just dealt with. We did lose to a lot of ranked teams, even though also losing to some unranked teams. We could squeak in the NCAA tournament regardless of the conference tournament. Certainly, we still would have to win a game or two, but we wouldn't have to win the whole freaking thing in the Big 12. We could get in. Obviously, now with only a few games left, more losing, it feels much harder. It does feel like that this team pretty much has to win the Big 12 tournament to get in the NCAA tournament. Is that just where everyone's at right now? Would you say that that's a fair assessment, regardless of Huggins saying we're not dead yet? That includes the big conference tournament, but I don't see another path at 14-15.
Yeah, I think that's the only way. There could be a weird path where they win out these last two games and then maybe make a run to the finals.
Yeah.
As long as they get the 17, 18, 19 wins, they will always have a chance. But you also have to remember they only have 3 guaranteed games left in the season. So there's not many paths that's going to help them get into the tournament without getting some help from the outsiders.
And I also think the problem is there's still opinion involved in who gets in the NCAA tournament. It's the same thing in football, and regardless of how many teams you allow in, and obviously in basketball you allow way more in than football, does give a lot more teams a chance. But at the end of the day, it is still opinion. And even if they would win the rest of these games and then maybe make a run in the conference tournament, well, yeah, that would be impressive. They'd have to beat some quality teams to make that run in the conference tournament. It is a really strong conference, as West Virginia knows, and it's very unlikely because they have been losing all these teams the last few months. But there's still going to be some people that are putting them. They're still going to be the Joe Lenardis of the world. They're still going to have a problem in terms of where they would be seeding wise, or even getting in, with people saying, but 1 win in 13 games. And yeah, you won 3 in a row in a conference tournament. That's good, but it's not like you won 8 or 9 in a row. And unless they win it, I feel like there's going to be a bad taste in the mouth of so many that could have influence here that I don't know if it's like as the easy way to say this, every year there's teams on the bubble. And sometimes a team that misses, people will say, I know that it was a borderline resume, but they deserved it. They really fought hard down the stretch. There are going to be people that are going to say this team doesn't deserve it. I mean, yeah, they went through a lot, but it's hard to deny that they don't deserve it with this record.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do think there is one point still to be made that is in their favor, and that's they don't have any bad losses. All their losses are quad 1, quad 2 losses.
I guess.
So
yeah.
if they were able to beat Oklahoma and TCU over the next week, and then win the first round matchup, then beat Kansas and Texas, and maybe lose Texas Tech, just hypotheticals. Like that's not a terrible way to end the season, and they would probably have a fighting chance in the bubble just because they don't have any bad losses compared to the other teams in the bubble.
Yeah, and there's a lot of respect to Huggins, regardless of what fans may think right now. There's a lot of respect to Huggins. This team has dealt with injuries this year. It is a very tough conference, so strength of schedule will certainly benefit the Mountaineers. But, we wouldn't have to have this conversation. You mentioned Oklahoma and some of these teams in quadrant 2 losses, even if they're not quadrant 1 losses when they were lost to ranked teams this year. If they would have beat Oklahoma at home in the midst of the 7-game losing streak, or beat Arkansas, who similar team to them, on the road, but not a ranked team. If they would have won some of those games, or even won this game, like for example, they win this game, they finally got a quality win they haven't had since the calendar year moved to 2022. This against Texas, even though they're ranked. You could certainly argue West Virginia let this one get away. They wouldn't have to worry about it. It almost feels like they were one solid win away, or at least not losing some of those non-ranked games. 1 or 2 less losses could have made this where they would at least squeak in the tournament, regardless of winning the Big 12. Ethan Bock joining me here from West Virginia Sports. Now the Mountaineers do lose at 82-81. I feel like I can't even remember the last time we were on it and had a win. So the Mountaineers do lose 14-15. They now are below 500 and certainly have their backs against the wall, even though Huggins is trying to be positive right now and saying, hey, I'm galvanizing the troops. We're not dead yet. What I do want to talk about now, Ethan, this is back to the actual gameplay here against the Longhorns. Number one, what got into Curry? 27, 7 for 15. Obviously the player of this game, really for either team, even in this loss. He attempted to carry this team, as our headline says, but the team fell short. He fell short, and it didn't end up happening. You can't ask for much more from a bench player, of course. His best game of the year. They haven't been getting bench production most of the season when they really needed it. And then what got into, on the flip side, negatively to Sherman and even others, because to me it feels like the starting 5 let down the bench a little bit here. Sherman only 13 points, 6 for 16. Curry 27, 7 for 15 from the bench, though. And Sherman's been productive since he's been back. He did miss a few games during the losing streak. with an injury, but he's not been nearly the Taz Sherman that he was the first half of the year when he was the driving force of this team when they were 13-2. He's been an okay player, not better than that, whereas Curry tried to carry this team in this game. Why are the bench players basically outplaying the starters in terms of what you can expect? How did that happen in this one?
I think this has been Malik Curry's game to take over for a while. Over the last couple of weeks, he's played very well. Or the Iowa State game, he played well. I think Taz is a little burnt out from trying to carry the team, and that makes sense. Sean McNeil, 9 points. Jalen Bridges didn't help me with my prediction with 0 points today.
No, you told me in the last show that he was going to turn it around and still fight for that number 3 spot.
He took one shot all game.
Somebody's dead. I don't know. It's not the team, but I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Taz's original core that was supposed to help him and support aren't really doing anything. Luckily, Malik Curry came to save the day. Almost stole the game single-handedly from Texas.
Yeah,
but it just wasn't enough. It was one shot away from stealing the game. And Gabe Osaboyan, another double-digit game.
Yeah, he got himself out of the doghouse. I would say without Curry and without Gabe, this team's losing by 20 points in this game. They not only kept a minute and almost stole this game. Those two right there, 1 and 2, as top players in this game. And to be fair, exactly what you mentioned. It's not just Taz Sherman's been a little off as a starter. He has had to carry this team, 1,000 career points. I mean, this is a stud player who was under McBride last year and now stepping up this year. He's in a bigger role. He's asked to do so much more. The offense has been struggling. He really needs to carry the day for this team to win. It is a lot to ask, but it's not just him who's been struggling recently, or at least not giving you enough as a starter. It is the whole rest of the crew. Yeah, I mean, they only have one starter in double digits in points. That's a problem. That just is. Even if you get 2 others from the bench, that's a problem. You got to expect your starters to do it, even though role players can step up and certainly do at times at home, especially. Any problems with the last shot there? And I mean, Curry was red hot, so giving it to him I don't think is an issue, but any problems with the final possession? That's one thing that I know you brought up. I actually saw your tweet that it feels like the underrated issue with West Virginia this year, even though they've had injuries and maybe they were undermanned at times, is they really do struggle in that final 30 seconds. Earlier in the year, it was Gabe with foul trouble. He then got benched and it still didn't get fixed. They were having Taz and others take those final shots. They now go to whoever's hot. It doesn't matter who you are, but even the way possessions unfold, it doesn't seem to click for West Virginia. And while Huggins is certainly a Hall of Fame coach, a finalist again, and by no means is he going anywhere or should be going anywhere, that's a fair criticism to put on a coach, that this team doesn't seem properly prepared for those final seconds, or else they are, and it just totally goes awry. What are your thoughts on this final possession for the Mountaineers that once again does not fall? They're a team that's lost so many games in that quote-unquote clutch time this year. You flip a couple of those, we don't have to have our opening topic. They're in the tournament.
Yeah, I think the shot by Malik Curry was fine. Taz Sherman and Malik Curry both said it was the best shot to take, because say he drives to the rim, couldn't be no foul call, or he gets fouled, misses a free throw.
Okay.
Game continues. This team just they fizzle out every single Big 12 game. It's the same story. It's not like this is the best 14 and 15 team in the country. It's not like they don't get blown. They never get blown out. And when they do, it's only because the second half is bad. They always are in it, at least for one half. It's not like they get blown out from the opening tip and then just get blown out for the rest of the game. They're always in the game at some point. And over the last couple of weeks, it's just been them not being able to finish games. And say they win Texas and Iowa State, there's a whole nother conversation going on. So, but I think this was the best shot they could have taken. They could have taken in the last. They shouldn't even have had that possession. Isaiah Cottrell was able to deflect the pass and hit it off of a Texas guy. So they shouldn't even have had that possession. But I think that was the best shot for him, and it almost went in. So I don't think it was a bad shot.
Yeah, I guess I can hear that. I mean, there's that whole conversation. We even saw this in the NBA last night, for example, that if you're not down by 3, should you even be taking a 3? If there's any room, you got to drive it because you could draw a foul. But obviously, a 3-point shot has become much more of a popular shot the last 5+ years, thanks to Steph Curry and others. And if you can hit it, fine. He certainly was red hot in this game. Again, Curry, 27 points from the bench. There's no way to criticize him in this game. By no means is he at fault for this loss, regardless of that last possession. But you need more from the starters. And this does feel like one game they let get away. You mentioned Iowa State. We could go on for an hour on all the games they let get away this year. And if one or two of them went the other way, this team would at minimum be a late seed in the NCAA tournament, regardless of that Big 12 tournament coming up. Our Ethan Bock here, joining me live from the Coliseum. The Mountaineers do lose 82-81. They couldn't flip those horns down in those final seconds. West Virginia now 14-15. It does feel like they're better than that record, even though they haven't been winning at all, really, in recent weeks. And right now, they're certainly on a bubble if it's not already have been popped here. Go to WV Sports Now, as well as at WV Sports Now on Twitter for the game recap and our video reaction. Ethan, they have Oklahoma coming up on Tuesday. So we talked about in our last post-game show a couple games ago that I don't know if it's a positive or a negative. They had a lot of games in a short amount of time. During this losing streak, there were a lot of games that were far away from each other. You had one game, don't play for a week again. They were still losing, but you had 3 or 4 games here and there that are clumped within a 10-day period. That continues now. They do have a couple days off, but they will play Tuesday night. It's another game that you can watch nationally against Oklahoma. Then they have TCU. It's a general question, I guess, here, but what do you expect out of that Oklahoma game? And what does West Virginia need to do to beat the Oklahoma Sooners? They have already lost to them. That's a team that is no better than them, really. They're on a similar level to them. It's not like Texas where it's a ranked team, at least. These are must-win games, but these are at least winnable games for West Virginia with how they're playing right now, but obviously they need to be better as well. In particular, Oklahoma. How do you expect that game to unfold, and what does West Virginia need to do to beat Oklahoma in an absolute must-win Tuesday night as March hits?
West Virginia just needs to play consistent 40 minutes of a game. They haven't still have yet to win a road game in the Big 12.
Yeah.
They only have one road win all season. And it wasn't even on campus. It was in Birmingham.
You're right. It really wasn't a road game. Yeah.
Yeah. But they just need to complete a full game, 40 minutes on the road. I do worry about it being on the road, especially in Oklahoma. They always whenever they go to Norman, it's always a trap game for them for some reason. They need to maintain Tanner Groves this time around and not let him do whatever he wants to do. Because last game when he was in Morgantown, any big that was on him, Cottrell, Polycap, he would just back into him, do a post move and score. So
21 points, 9 for 11 in that game in Morgantown. Oklahoma won by 10.
Yeah, that's two things you got to do: stop Tanner Groves and play 40 minutes of great ball offense and defense, and don't fizzle out the last 10 minutes of the game, and they will have a shot.
It sounds easy enough, but it's been incredibly difficult for West Virginia to pull off here in recent weeks. And of course, it's not like you're going to change anything up strategically wise. They're going to obviously have the same starting lineup you would figure. They want this bench production. You don't know if you're going to get this effort from the bench on the road. That's another thing about being on the road versus home. A role player is more likely to step up at home than on the road. So you got to figure the bench is going to give you less on the road in a tough place to play. You're going to need more from Taz Sherman. You're going to need more from McNeil. I feel like they both got to be double digits in scoring for them to even have a chance in that game. You're going to have to get rebounding from Gabe. I'd imagine he'll stay out of the doghouse for that game. If not, they're going to certainly be in trouble. And you're going to need more from Bridges and company, if that's even possible right now. They just need more from everyone. It's not like they're going to change anything up. They're still going to give Taz his shots, but they need more of them to fall. And they can't get down early. But yeah, it's about the end of the game. You feel like it's been how it's been. They're not going to be down by 20. They're going to be in these games. They've been in these games. They're competitive. It's just what ends up happening there down the stretch. Ethan, I appreciate the time. Any other thoughts from what you heard from players or coaches after this game, or even about this game, or what's to come here? We probably get another post-game show in before the end of the season in conference tournament, but it really is all about must-wins for West Virginia. They got to make a run probably in the conference tournament. And to say their backs are against the wall is an incredible understatement now.
Yeah, I just can't get over the positivity that Bob Huggins has saying they're not dead yet. I I think that's incredible because you and me have talked about it. We can't figure him out. We can't figure out if he's ready to throw in the towel and prepare for next season or to go with these guys. Right now, at this moment, it seems like he's running with these guys, and they're gonna have to make some magic happen, especially as they head into the Big 12 tournament. But I mean, like this team's so frustrating because if they did make the tournament, they would have a good chance of actually competing well against the other teams in the tournament because you need good guard play in March Madness. They have good guard play.
Yeah.
But they're in the Big 12. They were in any other conference, it's not the Big 12 or the Big 10, and they're probably competing for an NCAA tournament bid. But this team's frustrating because they've blown too many games, and now they're looking like they're going to miss out on March Madness. So.
Yeah, and I do agree. They probably would be in. They would at least have a better record if they were in another conference, certainly a quote-unquote easier conference. But at the end of the season, I'm sure Huggins would agree, they have only themselves to blame if they don't get into March Madness because they have blown these games down the stretch. They have been leading in some of the games in the final seconds and still found a way to lose. And they have lost to some teams that weren't ranked, even though they have lost to a lot of ranked teams and good teams as of late as well. So, yeah, that's why you can't lay those eggs against teams that aren't ranked when you got this gauntlet of a schedule here in the Big 12. They basically got to have these must-win games coming up here. It will not be easy, though. It's more of the same. We'll see what happens. But, yeah, it's very hard to read Bob Huggins because I just went on a show a few days ago, honestly, and it appeared at that point I was pretty confident that Bob Huggins, obviously you're not going to quit on a year, but the comments he was making about the roster and if you're not with the program, get out of town. We've heard him say that multiple times in recent weeks, actually, while he's been flip-flopping, kind of trying to call out his team. And for the first time, it almost appeared like maybe he would go to the transfer portal. He's been much more of a recruiter the last couple of years. That's something that fans want to see more of and will certainly be open this offseason. He was dipping his toes and making those comments with several games to go. Normally, he'll say, oh, we're still good. Regardless of a record, we have a chance, like he said with McBride and company. Not the case this year. So it felt like he wasn't going to quit, but he kind of knew in his heart of hearts, we're toast, we're done. I want to send a message for who's going to be here next year. And now, totally flipped it back to a 180 of we're going to fight there this year. We still have a chance, etc. Maybe he at least respected and appreciated the fact that they played so hard against a top 20 team, even though they do lose. So maybe that's where the nicer Huggins came from. But yeah, must win every game left, tournament or not. They cannot lose again, and they have lost plenty the last couple months. So they got all that losing out of their system, or at least you can hope if you're a Mountaineer fan. Or Ethan Bock here. I appreciate the time, Ethan. We'll be doing this again. We'll see if it's a better result here and there's a chance for some positivity. Ethan Bock here from West Virginia Sports Now. Again, head over to that site for his game recap. Find him on Twitter at Ethan Bock and at WV Sports Now on Twitter. The Mountaineers lose at 82-81. They fail to flip those horns upside down. West Virginia loses again. They fall to a game below 500. And the Mountaineers, those backs are against the wall. If not, they're already being pushed out of the madness of March.